In today's video, I'm gonna explain why interval cardio might be better for you than steady state cardio for your fat loss goals. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Parvella from ProPhysique.com. Now, in this video right here, I showed you the perfect 30-minute cardio plan, and I've been getting some great feedback and great questions, so let me address the question that I got. There's been some hype on social media lately regarding the benefits of alternating going fast and then slower in repetitive intervals. Is this science-based? If so, do you like this method? All right, so guys, I firmly believe that the king of fat loss cardio is definitely low intensity, steady state. Now, low intensity can be defined as, your resting heart being very low. It can be defined as, what type of fuel source you're using. But the lower the intensity of exercise, the higher the percent that your body is going to be using fat as a fuel. The higher the intensity of the exercise, the lower the amount of fat is going to be used for fuel, and it's actually going to be burning carbohydrates or sugars to fuel that type of exercise. Now, there's a lot of things being made about how when you ingest some sugar, your body doesn't burn fat because it chooses to burn the sugar. That's not true. That is completely false. And actually, it's the intensity of our movement that defines what fuel source or what substrate we use. And then it is the amount of calories over our maintenance that determine how much body fat we store. So let's talk about this new style of cardio that you're curious about, commonly referred to as interval cardio, where we'll spend a period of time with an increased intensity. I'll give you an example. Let's say we're on an incline treadmill and we're walking at a speed of 3 and an incline of 5. We might, for 30 seconds or a minute, go to a speed of 4.5 and an incline of 8 or 10, right? And then go back to the previous setting. This would be an interval. Now, what would be the benefit of this? Well, if you do that every few minutes over the course of 30 minutes or an hour, you are going to be burning more calories in that hour total. What would be the potential problems with that? And this is where you're going to get into a little bit of nuance, okay? So if you're only doing cardio for fat loss, right? You're not doing it for, let's say, some type of event where you need to have more endurance, then I firmly believe that I focus on the lower intensity steady state, less on the intervals. What I find is that when you do intervals, the higher the intensity of those intervals, the more exhausted you are throughout the rest of the day. There's a lot of research on high intensity interval training. Now, the difference between doing an interval and a high intensity interval is high intensity is basically all out. So if you can imagine, if you walk outside and you try to run a sprint as fast as you can't go for very long. If you're not conditioned, maybe 5-10 seconds. If you are conditioned, maybe 15-20. And that's not an exaggeration. An all-out sprint is going to exhaust you, okay? You're gonna be burning through oxygen very quickly and you're gonna gas out. Now, a lot was made a few years ago about doing this type of interval training for cardio because you burned a lot of calories both in the session, but after the session was over. They called it EPOC, or excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, because you're creating an oxygen deficit and the muscles are then going to the rest of the day be trying to make that up. So yes, you do tend to burn more calories when the cardio session is done, but what they didn't account for was the other 23 hours a day. So you do your cardio and you're burning excess oxygen the rest of the day, but what does that actually cause? Fatigue, exhaustion. So what happens is most people, when they do cardio in HIIT format, they do less the rest of the day. And if you're not familiar with how many calories we burn throughout the day, there's a lot of little factors. The biggest one is NEAT, non-exercise activity. If NEAT goes down due to exercise, then you might actually, even though you're working really hard for that cardio session, you might burn fewer calories. So this type of interval training that you're referring to, depending on the intensity, could actually burn a few more calories in the session, but it could create an issue later where you're actually burning less total calories throughout the day. And this is how fat loss works, right? It doesn't matter how much fat you burn in a session, it matters how much of a caloric deficit you create throughout the day. This is how I've gotten to this place in my life where I maintain a 10% body fat year round as a lifetime natural 50-year-old athlete, whatever you want to call me. I do bodybuilding. I know that's not a sport, but the idea is like I go to the gym, I walk, I eat, and this is how I look, okay? And believe me, I've made all these mistakes. I've tried all these methods. And so if you're just trying to have the best body composition possible, I really firmly believe that low intensity steady state is the key. And I haven't even talked about the biggest factor. When I used to do high intensity cardio, I would be starving. There is something about creating that huge oxygen deficit, something about burning sugars and carbohydrates for fuel, that when that is over, man, you just are exhausted. You are exhausted and you are starving. That is a deadly combination for you to move less throughout the day, NEAT goes down. Also for you to eat more total calories than you needed because you were trying to lose weight. So if you're not using intervals or high intensity cardio as a means to perform better, a skill or something, then I suggest really I don't use it, especially for my guys and girls that are getting in the gym and lifting weights 3 to 5 days a week. That is the magic formula. 3 to 5 days of the week resistance training, a lot of effort in that. Walking 3 to 5 days a week, depending on your goals. Now, what type of walking? I have a video right here. I think I mentioned it earlier. 30-minute walking session to burn body fat. It explains in great detail why I do what I do. I'm about to kick off a fat loss phase and I want to show you guys kind of what that's about. So we'll talk more in depth. So I want to know your questions about this, but just understanding that fat loss is not so much about what we do from minute to minute, it's the whole day that matters, okay? So intervals can be a great way for us to burn a few more calories in the same amount of time, but ultimately it's not what we wanna be doing if we struggle with energy and hunger the rest of the day due to that. Whereas low intensity steady state cardio actually helps reduce my hunger. Okay, hopefully you guys enjoy this and I'll talk to you tomorrow.